This is the Honors Math 3 video for Unit 6 Worksheet 3, and I'm going to start with question number 14. So for this one here, we want to graph it and then identify all the characteristics for the ellipse. So I know this is an ellipse because I have a positive x squared and y squared term, and both of the coefficients are positive. So the first thing I'm going to do is rearrange. So I'm going to group my x terms together. And I only have one y term, so that's just going to go at the end here. And then I'm going to subtract the 225 to the other side. And then once I do that, I want to factor out my leading coefficient, in this case of just the x terms, because there's no y term with the y squared. So I'm just going to take out a 25 from here. And then I want to complete the square on just the x squared minus 10x. So that will give me x minus 5 squared. And so here, I just added to the side of the equation, I added negative 5 squared, which is 25 times 25. So I have 25 times 25 that I just added to this equation when I completed the square. So I need to add that to the other side as well. So I'm just going to do 25 times 25, which is 625. So then I'm going to add 625 to here as well. Whoops, that looks like, there we go. So 625. Okay, and so 625 was added in here. So I'm just going to kind of smush it in there. Didn't leave myself any space. And then I'm going to add these two together, which is 400. And so once I get the square completed on both the x and the y term, so not necessarily on this y term, then I want to make sure this is equal to 1. So whenever we do ellipses, we want to make sure it's equal to 1 to be in descriptive form. So I'm going to divide everything through by 400. And then reduce it. So on my calculator, I'm just going to do 400 divided by 25, which is 16, which is what we were expecting to get, right? Oops, kind of running out of room here. And then I'm going to do 400 divided by 16, which is 25, and then 400 divided by 400 equals 1. Okay, so that's going to be the equation I want to graph, so I'm going to go ahead and go to graph paper now. So this is for number 14. So I'm just going to copy my equation over here. So I have x minus 5 squared, and then over 16, and then plus y squared over 25, and then equals 1. So my center is going to be 5, 0, so alphabetical order, x before y, opposite on both. So 5, and then I'm not adding anything to y, and 0. And so then now for my x radius, so I'm looking underneath my x term here. And so x squared, or x minus 5 squared, so that's 16. So then my x radius, I'm going to do a subscript here, is going to be the square root of 16, which is 4. And then my y radius, so I'm going to do a subscript there. So I look under the y term, so 25, so square root of 25, which is 5. Okay. And then I also want to find my value for c, so my value for c to help me find my focal distance, right, the distance from the center to the focus. And so I'm going to do the square root, and I always want to do the larger value minus the smaller value, right? So I know like in the formulas that say like a squared minus b squared, but I just want to take the larger number minus the smaller number because I want to make sure I'm square rooting a positive number. So I'm going to do 25, so I'm subtracting the denominators, right? So 25 minus 16. And so that will give me 9, so 25 minus 16 is 9. And then the square root of 9 is 3, so c would equal 3. Okay, and then let's go ahead and graph that. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see everything. So my center is at 5, 0. So, and then my x radius is 4, so from the center I'm going to go left and right 4. And then from the center my y radius is 5, so then I'm going to go up and down 5. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to make that look like an ellipse. So then now for my focus points, so I have C is equal to 3, so I want to know which one is my major axis. So my major axis is a longer one, so y radius was longer, so that means vertical, right? So then this is going to be my major axis. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line in this one, so that one is my major axis. And so then these are my vertices, right? These are my vertices. So I'm going to do a V here, and then label that. So my center was at 5, and then I went down 5. So this would be at 5, -5. And then my other vertex, so this one up here, so over 5 and then up 5. And then my foci lie on the major axis. So this one right here, the one that I have marked, that's the longer one, so that's where my foci will be. So from my center, I'm going to go up 3, and there's one of them, and then down 3, and there's the other. So that would be at 5, 3, and then at 5, -3. So then the other thing that we need to find is the length of the major axis and the minor axis. So the major axis is a total distance of 10, right, because the radius was 5, so 5 plus 5. And then the length of the minor axis, so the shorter one, and so that was an x radius of 4, so 4 and 4, so that minor would be 8. And then for my eccentricity, I do the distance from the center to the focus, so the distance from the center to the focus, so that was 3 units, and then divided by the distance from the center to the vertex, so the center to the vertex, which was 5. So then that would be 3/5 or 0.6. Okay, and there's number 14. Okay, and then let's also take a look at question number 18. So I'm going to do the work over here again so this is number 18. So I want to go ahead and group it. So I'm going to put my x terms together. So that would be 25x squared and then 150x. And then I'm going to group my y terms. So 49y squared plus 98y. And then add the 951 to the other side. And then from there, I want to go ahead and factor out the 25 from both of the x terms. Let me zoom in just a little bit. So when I factor out a 25, I'll have x squared and then plus 6x. And then I'm going to factor out a 49 from both of those. And then I want to complete the square. So then that will give me x plus 3 squared. So I just added 9 to this, right? Added 9 times 25. So then I'm going to just do 9 times 25. And I'm going to add that to this side. So that would be 225. And then I'm going to go ahead and complete the square here. So that would be 49. And then y plus 1 squared. So I just added 1 here, but 1 times 49. So then I'm also going to add in a 49. And so when I add all three of those together, I'm going to get 1225. And then because it's an ellipse, I want to make sure it's always equal to 1. So in this case, greater than 1. So that means I'm going to divide everything by 1225. And then divide that and reduce it. So I'll do 1225 divided by 25. And so I should get 49, which I do. And then divide here as well. And so again, I'll do 1225 divided by 49, which is 25, and then greater than 1. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to just take a quick second here to transfer that to the other page, to my graph paper, so that I can graph it on graph paper. Okay. So for number 18, so my center is at alphabetical order, X before Y, right? And then opposite on both. So that would be at -3 and -1. And then my X radius, so I look under the X value, so that's 49. So it would be the square root of 49, which is 7. And then for my Y radius, I look under the Y variable, so that would be the square root of 25, which is 5. So then I'm going to go ahead and find my value for C. So I'm going to subtract the denominators, and I always want to do the smaller one subtracted from the larger. So I'm going to do 49 minus 25. And so that would be the square root of 24, which is 2 root 6, but I want to go ahead and do this as decimal, because if I want to graph it, I want to be able to graph that. So I'm just going to do the square root of 24 here, which is 4.9. That way I can graph, 4.9. So let's go ahead and scale this out. So my center is at -3, -1, so that's right here. So my X radius is 7, so I want to go left and right 7. And my Y radius is 5, so then I'm going to go up and down 5. And then go ahead and make that look as much as I can like an ellipse. And so my X radius was the larger one, so that means this one's going to be my major axis. So I'm just going to draw a line through the major axis. And so then my vertices are at the ends of that major axis. So I have a vertex here. So again, I started at -3 for my center, and then I went left 7, so that put me at -10, and still at -1. And then again, I was at -3, and then I went right 7, so that'll put me at 4 and -1. So there's my vertices, and then my foci lie on the major axis. So from the center along the major axis, I'm going to move left and right 4.9. Okay, and so then now I also need to know the length of the major and the minor axis, so I'm going to do that over here. So the major axis, my X radius was 7, so 7 and 7, so that would be 14. And then my minor radius, or minor axis, sorry, is this way, so that's my Y radius, so 5 and 5, so that would be 10. And then for my eccentricity, so the value of C, which was 4.9, so the center to the focus, so 4.9, and then the center to the vertex. And so that would be my Y radius, which would be, my X radius, which is 7. So then I would just do 4.9 divided by 7, and so that would be 0.7, or about 0.7. Okay, and one more video, or one more homework question. Let's take a look at 22 and equation 1. So for number 22, they want us to write the equation. So I'm just going to do a little sketch here just to kind of get an idea of what's happening. So I have my vertices are at 3, 5, and 3, -9. So I will do that over here. So over 3 up 5, and then over 3 down -9. So those are my vertices, right? So that's the length of the major axis, so right here. And so that total distance is 14, right? So 5 minus -9, so this total distance here is 14. And then that means my y radius will be 7, right? So my y radius would be 7. And then my length of my minor axis is 8, so this way going here is 8. So I want to find the center though, right? So I want to find the center. So my center is going to be in the middle, right? In the middle. So the x value will be 3. And then the middle of this, so I just average these two numbers, so -9 plus 5 divided by 2, so that would be at -2. So at 3, -2 is my center. The other way to do it too is I knew my y radius was already 7, so 5 minus 7 is -2, or -9 plus 7 is -2. So there's my center. And then my minor axis is 8, so that means it's a total distance of 8, so then the x radius then would be 4. Right, so side to side, if the total distance is 8, then the x radius would be 4. I know my y radius is 7, and then I know my center is 3 and -2. Okay. So for my equation, so I'm going to do x minus my value for x, my center, squared, over my x radius squared, so 4 squared is 16, and then plus, and then y minus my value for y, which is -2, so double negative, squared, over my y radius, so 7 squared, which is 49, and then always equal to 1. And then there's my equation of that ellipse. And that's it for this video.